All right, let's start with a wild idea. What if I told you that your consciousness, the actual feeling of being you right now, has a shape? And I don't mean that as a metaphor. I mean a real, measurable, geometric shape. That's the absolutely mind-bending idea we're diving in today, straight from the frontiers of neuroscience. I know. It sounds like one of those deep, late-night philosophical questions, right? Does my mind have a shape? But what if it wasn't just talk? What if we could actually take your inner world, all of it, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, and literally map it out, measure it, using the cold, hard language of geometry? Well, that's the whole idea behind something called the Phenomenal Manifold Hypothesis. It's a really ambitious attempt to create a literal map of consciousness, a geometric space that holds a point for every single possible experience you could ever have. Think about it, from the deepest sleep to a moment of incredible insight. It's kind of like a GPS for your mind. And this is where it gets really cool. This theory says that the space inside your mind isn't static. It's not fixed. It actually stretches and shrinks and changes its shape and size depending on what state of consciousness you're in. And again, this isn't just a poetic way of talking about it. We are talking about actual measurable geometric properties. So here's the core idea, and it's actually pretty simple when you boil it down. Every single conscious experience you have is just a single point on this map. So let's say the experience of tasting a fresh strawberry and the experience of hearing a violin. On this map, those are two different dots. And the distance between those dots, that represents just how different those two experiences feel to you. Simple, right? But so powerful. Okay, so how in the world do you even start to map something like this? How do you draw the borders? Well, the theory says you need three key ingredients, three fundamental measurements from the brain. You can think of them as our surveying tools, the things we need to chart the vast landscape of the mind. First up, we have something called integration. Let's just call it the glue of your experience. When integration is high, it means your brain is firing on all cylinders, working like a world-class symphony orchestra. Every part is playing together, creating one unified, coherent masterpiece of a moment. But when integration is low, it's more like that chaotic sound of all the musicians just warming up in separate rooms. It's just a bunch of disconnected noise. All right, next on our list is coherence. Think of this as the rhythm of the brain. When coherence is high, it's like watching a group of professional dancers moving as one single entity. Every move, every gesture is perfectly synchronized. It's beautiful, it's elegant. But low coherence? That's more like the dance floor at a wedding after a few drinks. Everybody's just out there doing their own thing. It's chaos. And our final ingredient is differentiation. This one is all about the richness of your experience. The best way to think about it is comparing an 88-key grand piano to a single bell. A brain with high differentiation is like that grand piano. It's capable of producing an almost infinite variety of complex melodies and harmonies. A brain with low differentiation, it's more like that single bell. It can make a sound, a beautiful sound even, but it's only one note. Okay, so let's recap. We have our three tools: the glue, which is integration, the rhythm, which is coherence, and the richness, differentiation. So, now what? How do these actually help us read the map? How do we use them to calculate that real felt distance between any two experiences? This is where it gets a little mathematical, but stick with me. The analogy is perfect. The theory uses what's called a hybrid metric. Just think of it like planning a road trip. The raw data from your brain is like the straight line distance on a map between two cities, as the crow flies, right? But we all know that's not how you actually drive. Our three ingredients, the glue, rhythm, and richness, are the phenomenal adjustment. They're the real-time traffic report. They tell you about the road conditions. So high coherence might be like a wide-open, smooth highway, making the trip feel way shorter. But low integration, that's like hitting a bunch of fragmented, broken-up backroads, making the journey feel way, way longer. So this all leads to a really crucial piece of the puzzle. It's a mathematical function they call pi. Not the number, just a function they've named. And you can think of it as a kind of smart translator. It looks at this absolute storm of raw activity in your brain, all that chaotic data, and it compresses it. It filters out all the useless noise and keeps only the stuff that's actually essential to the experience you're having. This pi function is what turns billions of messy individual neural signals into the clean, unified map of your mind. So now we've got all our tools. We've got our ingredients, we've got our translator. So what does the map of our mind actually look like? This is the payoff, right? This is where the theory makes some really fascinating and totally testable predictions about how the geometry of our consciousness literally changes from one moment to the next. Just take a look at this. It gives you a real glimpse into just how dynamic our minds are. When you're awake and alert, your map is this huge, sprawling, high-dimensional landscape, just full of possibilities. But what happens when you're in a deep, dreamless sleep? The theory predicts that this entire vast landscape collapses, all the way down to pretty much a single point. Think about that. Your entire inner world literally shrinks to nothing. Let's actually break this down with a few different states. So your ordinary day-to-day wakefulness, the theory says your mind is like a wide, fertile valley. It's rich, there's a lot going on, but it's pretty easy to navigate. Deep sleep, or anesthesia like we saw, the whole map just collapses to a single point. Now, what about something like a psychedelic state? The prediction is a vast, fractal mountain range, absolutely breathtaking in its complexity, but also maybe pretty disorienting and hard to navigate. And then there are certain deep meditative states. The hypothesis there? A perfectly smooth, featureless plane. A state of just pure, simple, unified awareness. Okay, this is all incredibly cool stuff to think about, but you might be asking, so what? What are the actual real-world implications? Why does this map matter? Well, the potential impact of being able to truly map consciousness, it's profound, both for medicine and for how we understand ourselves. I mean, think about it. If this theory actually holds up, it could completely change how we assess consciousness in patients with severe brain injuries, letting us see what's going on inside instead of just relying on whether they can blink. It could give us brand new biomarkers for mental health conditions. It could give us a truly scientific, quantitative way to study things like meditation and psychedelic states, and it could even give us a framework for tackling one of the biggest questions of our time. Could an AI system ever be truly conscious? How would we even know? Now, it's really important to be clear about what a theory like this is and what it isn't trying to do. It's not claiming to solve the famous hard problem of consciousness. It doesn't explain why we have experiences in the first place, but it does something that's arguably just as powerful. It gives us a rigorous mathematical toolkit to measure and describe the structure of that experience. It's not the why, but it's a huge step towards understanding the how. You know, for centuries, we've stared up at the stars, mapping galaxies, and exploring the vastness of the cosmos. And now, it feels like we're finally turning that same spirit of exploration inward. We're using the same powerful tools of mathematics to chart the terrain of our own minds. So the final question is this. If your own consciousness has a shape, a hidden geometry, what other incredible, invisible landscapes are just waiting to be discovered? Not just out there in the universe, but right inside you.